When you learn any new programming language, the first thing that you work with is variables. We are going to take a look at variables and quotes in this video. Valid variable names are made up of alphabetic characters, underscore characters, and numbers. A valid variable name would be something like var1. A variable name like 1var, however, is not valid because variable names cannot start with numbers. Something that you may find strange about shell scripts is that you do not have to indicate a type for the variable, like int or char. In TCSH, you just use the keyword of set and then assign the variable to be equal to something. If you want to print a variable, you use echo for printing, and then the name of the variable with a $sign in front. As a note, there may be times when you need to enclose the variable name in curly brackets. Notice that when you use the variable, you precede it with a $sign, whereas when you assign a value to a variable, there is no $sign. Let's take a look at some code examples. As you recall, we are in the directory for the lab, and we have several shell scripts. Before we look at a shell script, I want to show you that you can try individual commands in the shell to see how it works. To make sure that we are using TCSH, type TCSH at the prompt. From now on, TCSH will be the shell that interprets whatever we type. First, let's try the example from the notes of setting var to 1 and printing the value. The echo works both with and without the curly brackets around the variable name. Now let's try to set a second variable, var2 to 2. We end up with a funny error. This is something to take note of. Spaces matter in shell scripts. Be consistent with your spaces. In this case, we have a space before the equal, but not after. Believe it or not, this is what the shell script is complaining about. If we try again with a space on either side of the equal, then it will work. The second way of assigning a variable is by using a for each loop. We list in parentheses what we want the variable to be assigned to. Each loop, our variable will take on the successive value in the list. In the first iteration, it will be a 1. The next iteration, it will be a 2. And lastly, it will be 3. Let's try this for each loop. We will print var in the loop to see what happens. Why isn't it printing the numbers? Well, remember we need a $sign. Let's try that again. And voila, it works. Notice that end will end the body of the for each loop. We have some sample code in variables.sh. I want to point out a couple of things in this file. First of all, anything that is preceded by a sharp or a hash sign is a comment. Also, when we want to get input from the keyboard, we set the variable to $sign less than to indicate this input. To run this file, we simply type the name of it. Something is wrong though. We've seen this message before. The deal with a shell script is that if there is an error, it will run up to the point where it encounters that error. It will produce a likely cryptic message and stops. Let's fix this code with your favorite editor. I'm using VI. The mistake here is in inconsistent spaces. When we try running the script again, it prompts us to enter a number. After we enter a number, it will be displayed. Then the for each loop will loop 3 times for each of the 3 things in the list. Because it's sometimes hard to figure out what's wrong with the code, you can add -v after the TCSH so that it enters verbose mode. I'm introducing an error into the code so that you can see how the -v option works. When you run variables.sh now, you will see the lines of code as they are encountered and the echoes being displayed. Notice how it produces an error on the line that gets input from the keyboard. The -v might help you to determine what's wrong with your code.